Marshall Chriswell is on the line with us this morning, and this installment of Martial Law is intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing, and the information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. A guy just like Marshall Chriswell, who is on the line with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Good to have you with us here today. You know, we talk about a lot of different things here on your installments, and included among them much on estate law. We do a lot of landlord-tenant types of things. This is a little different topic here for today. There are certain reporting requirements and other requirements placed upon business owners, both federal and state laws affecting them, and we need to be sure that we're up to date on those and filing properly, and certainly a lawyer such as yourself can inform and advise people in that respect. Some new ones are coming in now, as a matter of fact, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important for business owners, to understand that there are new laws that create reporting requirements, both at the federal level and state level, that are coming into effect essentially now. And I don't know that the federal or state government has done a really good job of educating the public and making sure that business owners, particularly small business owners, understand what they're going to have to do and when.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what are some of those areas?
Yep. From the federal perspective, so in 2021, the legislature passed what's called the Corporate Transparency Act. There's never been anything like this before. It essentially, the purpose of it is to combat money laundering and fraudulent schemes and terrorism funding, and often those things are effectuated. Those types of bad acts are effectuated by the creation of shell companies and having. Whether it's corporations or limited liability companies or partnerships that are shell companies, they hold money, ill-gotten gains, and the ownership structure of them is very opaque. It's difficult to find out who owns this company and who controls it, and so the government has a very difficult time enforcing the law. So now, every company, whether you're a corporation, a nonprofit corporation, for-profit, a limited liability company, a business trust, a partnership, any entity that is registered that is created by registering with the government has to provide who its beneficial owners are. So it's called the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. So it's done online. You go online, and through the agency is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and you've got to file a report stating who are the beneficial owners of this company. And those are the people that either own at least 25% of the company, or they are people that substantially control the company, and there's a definition for that. But you've got to do this, and if you the deadlines for it are, if you are a currently existing company, a company that existed prior to the beginning of this year, you've got until the end of this year to do it, so December 31st, 2024. If you are a new company that is created this year and any time hereafter, you have 90 days from the creation of your company to complete the beneficial ownership report.
Mm-hmm. There are going to be a lot of folks who say, well, I don't have a shell corporation. I'm not involved in any of that stuff, therefore I shouldn't have to report. That's not the case, is it? It
is absolutely required of all companies, any registered business entity or nonprofit corporation, and whether you are a domestic company, a foreign company, everybody has to report. And if you don't, there is enforcement of that, of course, and there can be civil and criminal penalties up to it's over $500 a day. That's if you're willfully failing to. Of course, you're going to get plenty of warnings and notices and things like that. But if they decide to enforce against you, the penalties can be severe.
Yeah, well, a lot of companies are family-owned and not really involved in anything that is going to be tipping them off that they need to do something like this. And so that I think what it does is it highlights the importance of having someone who's there to watch out for you, and an attorney is a good place to start with that.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, Todd, and something that I'm pointing out to my clients, this is in many areas of practice, is that there are, as we've discussed, there are so many ways to get things done now as far as online and companies, non-attorneys that are starting companies to form businesses or create estate plans or do these things. And we could debate whether it's legal for them to do that or whether that's the illegal, unauthorized practice of law, or, there are debates about that. But these things exist. But just remember, if you go and you decide, well, I'm just going to do this on my own and file this, through this online fly-by-night company, they're not going to be there when these changes occur, and you've got to know about these reporting requirements. Yeah. They're not going to be there to make sure that you comply with things. So it's important to have someone that knows what they're doing.
So that's a big one. Are there others?
There are. So that's on the federal side. The other thing, coincidentally, Pennsylvania has now made its annual reporting requirement more robust, starting in 2025. So starting next year, so people need to be ready for this. All businesses and nonprofit entities in Pennsylvania, whether you are a business or nonprofit that was formed under Pennsylvania law, or you own a company out of state that's registered to do business here, and there are a lot of those. Every one of these companies and nonprofits has to file an annual report. This has been, there's been reporting requirements for corporations in Pennsylvania. The big change here is the addition of limited liability companies. Over the years, limited liability companies, LLCs, have become the much more prevalent way of doing business, particularly for small businesses. Mm-hmm. There are thousands and thousands of these. And they haven't had any annual reporting requirements up to this point. But now, starting in 2025, all entities are going to have to file an annual report with the Pennsylvania Department of State. There are reasons for this. There are so many companies that are out there on the books that don't do business anymore, that have just been allowed to languish, and the rights to their names are tied up, and you don't know, and the state doesn't know whether they're active and filing taxes or what. So now you've got to file every year. It's got to be an annual report. There's information required from you, and if you don't, within 6 months, then they can terminate your company.
Wow.
And there's an opportunity for reinstatement, and there's a procedure for that. But you have to know that if you don't file it within 6 months, your company will be terminated. And even though you can later apply for reinstatement, while your company is terminated, any business that you're doing, there's implications there. A lot of people have these business entities in order to protect themselves from individual liability. If you don't have a company, that goes away. There are serious considerations there.
Yeah, and we're talking as well sole proprietorships and partnerships too.
Well, registered entities. So a lot of sole proprietorships are not registered entities. You can, there are folks that have small businesses that have never registered as a limited liability company, as a corporation, as a nonprofit, anything, and so those folks are not affected by this. It's just if you're a registered entity.
Yeah. Well, so many companies don't have legal representation and don't have a retainer with an attorney, and these are just ways of pointing out to them that it's a really good idea to have somebody who's looking out for those interests legally for you, just so you know that there's somebody that is on your team, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I've just outlined, I mean, the penalties for non-compliance with these are, they can be severe. And, like the federal rule, the beneficial ownership rule, if you also have to understand that, hey, if things change, you've got to the law is very specific as to when do you have to update that beneficial ownership information and what changes constitute a requirement for updating. And there's also some room for interpretation there, and you've got to kind of fill in the blanks and say, okay, well, what if one of my owners changes their address? What if they get a new driver's license? Is that something that is that's reportable? Well, those are things that are going to be fleshed out over time. And if you've got an attorney on your side, they'll be, we will be versed in what the law is and what the new interpretations of the law is, so that, when those things happen to you, I can say, yeah, we've got to report it. Or, no, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Well, that's always good to have somebody who knows the stuff that is going to back you up like that. So if somebody wants to make you that attorney, what should they do?
Sure, you can always give me a call, 724-465-5826. Stop and see us. My office is in the old R&P Coal Building, which is behind the post office on Church Street here in Indiana. Or you can go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Beautiful. Marshall Chriswell, thanks so much for the visit today.
Thanks, Todd. Talk to you soon.
There's Marshall Chriswell with us this morning here on Indiana in the Morning on WCCS 101.1 FM. AM 1160 and WCCSradio.com.